Are you ready? All right. Hi, everybody. It's the Jere Metcalf Podcast where real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we have a fabulous guest, of course, Judy Jones, and she is with Corcoran Reverie on 30A in Watercolor. Judy, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Jere. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's fun.
So today we are going to talk first about everybody. Judy's, well, she's going to turn her camera back on. Oh, there we go. We're going to talk about your career. You've been an agent for, I think, about four or 5 years.
Yes.
You've come quickly to the top. We're going to talk about how that happened. And we're going to talk about managing expectations. But first, give us a little bit about how in the world did you decide to get into this business? How did it happen?
Well, in my career, I've always been in sales. I started out in radio sales, and I don't know if you know about radio sales, but it's straight commission, and you've got to dig up your own business. So nobody gives you anything. So, and it is a very competitive business as well as real estate is. So anyway, so I already had good background in selling. So then years go by, and I'm very interested all the time in architecture, houses. I was renovating houses. And that was a lot of fun, but after.
Well, now in radio sales, were you in LA for that, or where were you doing that?
No, I was actually in Minneapolis, and they promoted me to national sales promotion person. So I got to travel all over the country, teaching other salespeople how to develop new business. So.
Oh, that's what I want to talk about then. But keep going.
So anyway, then, so I was renovating houses. I did it in Los Angeles. I did it in Birmingham, Alabama. I did it in North Carolina, because we kept moving a lot. So I had a lot of opportunity to renovate, and I had a lot of fun doing that. But then it was time to kind of, the market crashed, and it just, those opportunities dried up a little bit. So I had houses, and I was renting them out along 30A, and I bought them back in like 2004. And I really enjoyed. Most people go, "Ugh, this is such a messy business." I like it. I like having the people have the best vacation ever, and figuring out what's so wonderful about where we live, how their children can ride their bikes pretty freely, and you're not so fearful, because they can't do that in larger cities.
Right. For those of you who haven't or have vacation on 30A, it's like little bicycle gangs of kids, even on whether they live here or they're vacationing. It's just bicycle gangs everywhere. Like, I call them bicycle. They're not gangs, but they're just groups of kids on bikes everywhere. But anyway,
little boys that are 10 years old, and they've got their arms out and they're riding their bike. I mean, it's the cutest thing ever. I'm so happy for those families that their kids can learn to just be freer like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in radio sales, based in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, so I'd start doing the renovations after I was done with radio, because, radio is like.
That was your job. You were renovating houses.
Yeah, that became, I was living in them, renovating them and all of that. And then we'd sell them, and we did, pretty well with it. But so then I bought the 2 homes here, and really was enjoying living here. But, I just couldn't quite make that jump to be here full time. I didn't know if I could handle being in a smaller town and all of that. And then finally in 2016, I thought, I was in Los Angeles, living there in Venice Beach, still beach, but different beach, quite. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. The traffic, all the issues, the fear of the lifestyle. So anyway, moved here full time and never looked back. I'm so happy I did it. I absolutely love living here. And then I got into real estate full time. I thought, I'm just going to jump in.
Wow. So number one, I hear your story and I'm like, risk taker. I mean, radio sales, investing and selling and renting properties. And then you're in LA, which is, I'm from the South, but LA is kind of a big place. Not that I don't know LA, or I've not been there. I don't know it. Anyway, then you finally come here and you're like, hey, I'm just going to come move down here to my vacation home, or one of them. And I'm just going to like get into real estate and become a real estate agent.
Yeah. And it wasn't that hard in 2016. I'm not trying to be modest. It just wasn't there was 1,000 agents, let's say, on 30A. Now there's 4,000. So it's a lot more competitive now for people that are just getting started than it was back when I started. You know, and the market, there was a lot of inventory, not like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. So breaking into the industry, you were in radio sales, commission only. That sounds a lot harder. So if you were so good at radio sales that you were making a living and you were telling other people how to make a living at it, what did you take, or what can we learn from you from that? And what did you take and leave as you transition that into being a real estate agent?
That's a good question. I think, and I do this in real estate too. I always treated radio like it was my own little business, my own small little nuclear of a business. And when you do that and you're dealing with clients and customers and your radio station, you figure out what is the best thing I can put together for this client to make them stay with me and not go with another radio station. And you know, that's so true too in real estate. Why would they stay with me and not go with one of the other many, many, many agents from wonderful brokerage firms as well? So, you know, you just try to pull all your best resources together and give that to them as a gift, really.
Yeah. With your experience buying and selling in this in your market, like what, like coming into it, was it hard to break in? Was it easy to break in? What were the biggest surprises?
You know, that's a good question. I was a little bit disappointed that some people wouldn't really make the time to talk to me, and people acted a little bit, you know, and I thought,
yeah, don't we get that in this business? Yeah.
Really good experience. Why are you not? And so, it was another brokerage, and they gave me an opportunity, and they really listened, and they made a lot of money, you know, I mean, because they gave me great advice. And the biggest thing they told me was sit down with your database, sit down with everyone you know, and make a list, prioritize it, and just keep that in mind. And I was kind of surprised once I did it, how many people I knew in different cities. Because the big thing here, as you probably know, is that the people that are buying from us aren't necessarily from here. They're from Nashville, they're from Dallas, they're from Minneapolis, you know, from all over.
Exactly. And more people are wanting to buy in 30A. Now, looking at your market, we're going to get into managing expectations because you're so good at that, but I want to learn about you, and I know everybody else does first. And for example, you're in Watercolor.
Yes.
Is it Watercolor? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in Watercolor, which is pretty small. I say that's, as far as you've got a home in there, is that kind of where you specialize, or who is usually your client and how do you attract them in the first place?
Well, Watercolor has 4 phases in it, so it's actually kind of big. But it's very popular because it's a tremendous vacation rental. And, you know, we don't have many hotels down here. So much higher rate of people wanting to rent a vacation home, and they're willing to pay what it takes, you know, maybe it's a couple families or a large extended family. But yeah, this is one area I definitely specialize. I know it very well, but the way I really got further along faster, let's say, was open houses. People didn't want to really hold them. And I mean, you know, it is time consuming. You got to sit there, but I would pick neighborhoods that, you know, appealed to me. I was fortunate, as sometimes other people would let me hold their opens. So I picked really good Water Sound, Watercolor, just places like that where you'd have good traffic and also a higher level luxury buyer. So, and I just clicked with the people that, you know, they liked what I had to say. They thought I had credibility, whatever the reason was. And that's really how my business took off.
So you start winning these clients, and we all know it's a crazy market, and 30A is a market. Everybody that's panhandle of Florida, pre-planned communities, higher and higher price points, especially lately. So you've got buyers coming in, they're sophisticated. There are 2 things I think about that. It's not like they see you at the grocery store.
Right.
So how do you build rapport and reputation and then building that trust to set expectations? That was kind of a loaded question, but give us kind of what it looks like for you as you win the client and go from there.
Well, I have an interesting client who was with another agent, and the client was redoing a house, renovating the house next door to me. And I would call her occasionally and just say, your contractor's hardly ever there. I'm kind of concerned for how things are going. And I meant it. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he was putting a lot of money into this house. And so, they just were super noisy. So I actually did complain a few, I'll admit it. And one day she said to me, she's from New Orleans, and she goes, Judy, I appreciate you telling me so much about my house, but I am raising the entire cost per square foot of your street. So I hope you can appreciate all that noise.
Oh,
good
so
for
what
you.
did you say? Yeah.
What? I do appreciate that. And I appreciate the way you just put that. So, I mean, it was funny.
You gotta love that. Right. She wasn't wrong.
She did. She did 2 houses on her street, and she definitely brought up the value of our entire street. So, but anyway, long story short, she was very committed to this other person she'd been working with, but that person, for whatever reason, stopped being quite so available. And my client could see, well, she's my client now, but she could see that I was selling in watercolor, and I was getting a really high cost per square foot, and it was happening rapidly. And I was holding opens. I mean, I was doing all the work that you're supposed to do, very hands-on. And she transferred over to me. And not only did she give me her own personal business, but she became a tremendous source of referrals.
Wow. You gotta love that. From the neighbor calling to give her the scoop and tell her about the noise to like a great client giving you referrals.
Right. I mean, she would come to my open houses that were in other areas. And I can remember this one couple came in, and I told them about her house being for sale. And so we were standing in her house, and she goes, I go, hey, there's those people I met at my open house. They came here. And she goes, well, was that from you? And I said, absolutely, that was from me. I met them at the open house, and they didn't know about your house. So anyway, long story short, she could just see that she liked that I was a hard worker, and that I was putting in so much energy and time into everything I did.
Yeah, that's amazing. So coming in radio sales, then you're in real estate personally. So you got a lot of experience, and now you're a real estate agent on 30A. What has been what have you taken from those businesses to make yourself successful now? And what has been kind of your biggest aha to being successful at being a real estate agent in the first place?
I really think those, starting with the open houses and just having credibility, I'm seasoned, let's face it. I'm not some 25-year-old kid, and thank God it works to my benefit for once in my life. And so, I've bought and sold houses, I've renovated houses, I've done vacation rental and managed, several vacation. And so that's what our whole nucleus of business is here, vacation rentals. And people don't really care about renovations that much. I mean, there's the occasional developer, and that's great business too. Yeah. But that's niche of business. So
knowing what you need to know for the client and the personal experience.
Yes, right. And so they have trust in you. I mean, it's a big deal that people trust you. This is one of the most important decisions they make in their lives, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So they have to feel really comfortable that you can do the job, whether it's listing their house or finding them their perfect dream home, that you take seriously.
So it's talking about that, they have to be comfortable. That also means there's a level of what you're so good at, managing their expectations. So right. What does that mean, managing expectations?
Well, that's a whole big subject, but to me, it's a marathon kind of. You got to get to the finish line, and throughout the entire sales cycle, let's say A through Z, if you haven't explained to people what they can expect, and you better say it with some level of confidence. Let's say you've got the listing, and we just had a situation like that in the last, well, it's been going on for about a month or two, but it got uglier and uglier just because the expectations were really high on both sides as to what they were entitled to.
And this is on a contract for a listing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very very helter-skelter there for a while. Went down, it's off, it's on, it's off. And it was, the whole thing was the expectation of the buyer and the seller. And
Mm-hmm.
did a few things that, made them uncomfortable, let's say.
Well, I think that happens in 38 a lot, is that there's more stuff that transfers with the house. So there's that whole, but what do you find is the biggest? Is it managing expectations because things go to contract so quickly? Is it the contract, or what about before the contract, and what about buying and finding the right house or selling? Like, what are the most challenging expectations to manage?
Well, yeah, it is a little different here. That is one of the touchier points, is if you're buying a lot of these homes come fully furnished.
Yeah.
Most people take their own art, or if there's some family crystal or something like that, of course they're going to take that. And that's a normal expectation. Well, in this situation, that became abnormal. So, but yeah, so that has to be specified early on very clearly, and there really shouldn't be any wobbly factor.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the message is think ahead, like think way ahead, everything that could go wrong. Like you said something at the beginning of this interview, you always say, how can I create the best package possible and the best experience possible for my client? That's already thinking ahead for the best. Think ahead for the worst. How do you think of like when you communicate, how do you, in managing expectations, do you have any set factors in your head? Okay, do you have something you just tell them every time, or something what are the questions you're asking yourself every time to manage it?
Well, and this has happened twice now, so I'm going to be even more forward and confident going in on listings. I had this happen with another person a few years ago, where after all the photos were taken and the photos were beautiful, her place was beautiful, she started taking stuff out and replacing it with lesser things. And it was like I could not stop her. And so these people came in, bought it. Then they looked at the photos and went, wait a minute, these photos are completely different than what you've sold me. And what could I say? They were right. And so that was canceled. Cancel.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, it was my birthday.
Right. I mean, right. So good. So when that happened, moving forward, what do the conversations start looking like with clients?
Well, now it's going to be, when and I just had this today, actually, I went under contract on something, a cool house. I had a listing in Seagrove, not a very big house, but double lot. So really a cool opportunity for somebody. So
yeah.
I told the people, I don't think it'd be a big deal how much, I'm sure you can keep your own personal art and all of that. So we put that down, and would you believe the buyer came back and wanted their personal art? So fortunately, these people were smart enough and savvy enough to go, that's fine. They can have it. If they pay this price, they can have it. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's funny. Well, no, keep going. And
no, it was, I was so great. Like, oh my gosh, after this other experience, I just don't need, that headache again.
But in a hot market, buyers come in willing to pay a lot and do what they need to do. And then they kind of get to their threshold. And it's like, watch that, because as a seller in a hot market, and this is for buyers and sellers, but we're obviously talking to real estate agents for this show, but giving real estate agents advice, it's like, but tell your clients, buyers have thresholds, and let's not test it when you're representing sellers. Now you sell more, do you represent more sellers or buyers?
Really, I represent more buyers, I'd say. But I mean,
Let's talk about those expectations.
Yeah, I mean, buyers these days, with how fast the market moves, you know, it's you better go in, and you do need to really tell them, look, I'm not just saying this. I know it sounds like it, but offers on this a decent house in a decent street, the price is right. There's going to be several offers. So if you really truly want this house, it's that thing you got to have here. You got to come in with a really clean offer, no contingencies. I mean, if you have cash, obviously cash is number one. But besides cash, you got to make it easy, because we got to win over the other agents that are putting in offers. And we just won one that was five offers went in, and it only been on the market one day.
Wow, like the new normal, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's probably the most intense one I've had. But and the people were so grateful, and they're really happy, and they're happy about everything about it. The price, all was good. And,
Awesome.
We wrote that into our offer, the escalation.
It's funny. I love it with you. You're so transparent and so candid with people. I think that's a little bit of your secret sauce in helping you set expectations and manage them with people. What has been your biggest challenge, would you say, that you've had and overcome to put you in a place of such success as being an agent?
It really happened at the beginning of this year, after the pandemic, and our market went on fire, just like a lot of people's markets did. I was not prepared for negotiating at that level, and I lost out. And then also, some of my people didn't have cash, and the cash people were flowing into our market. I mean, who would think that 4 million cash, no problem? So, I just got caught. Some of it's, like I said, I didn't have the cash buyers, and also some of my people just weren't willing to ante up. They just thought, oh, that's ridiculous cost per square foot. And now it's become the new normal. Some of these costs, $1,000 cost per, I've sold two.
Yeah, easy.
That zone. So
I remember that was the highest list price in being an owner on 30A. I know, like that used to be that they used to pay the high end. Now it's kind of like normal.
Yeah.
Just in the last year.
Yeah. When I first started.
So what's your biggest lesson learned on managing those expectations? I think it's being honest, but what's some other advice you have for us on that? Making sure we get the message out. Give us any fun stories you've got.
Well, I think you're right about being direct, because people trust you. I mean, that's just my personality. I can't, I can't be, I'm not very good at being subtle. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So it's just not in my makeup, but I think it does work to my benefit, because then people realize I'm not kidding around. If you really want this, what you got to do. And it's straight to the point.
Well, that diffuses things and actually establishes trust and rapport up front. It's kind of like you're calling the white elephant out. Don't let us sit there too long. This is what it is.
I'm also, people really like my clients. I'm super responsive. It's almost like an immediate response, regardless of pretty much what I'm doing. I've got that phone with me. I text back very quickly, or I do whatever they've asked of me. If they have questions, get back to them ASAP. And, I try never to drop a ball. Like, we all know in doing a sale from A to Z, there's a lot of things along the way where you could drop a ball or two. So it's important to have really good resources that you're working with, so you're not a ball dropper, because that'll really disappoint people. And not only will you not get referrals, but they'll say bad stuff about you or shit.
Right. You lose, like you said earlier, trust and credibility, but the big one's trust. They don't trust you. So you talk about good resources.
Yes. Good closing agents, title companies, your inspector, the photographer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. You're like, by the way, speaking of photography, this is one of your beautiful listings that you've sold recently for.
Yeah, that was That's one of those homes where any picture I took, it looked great.
I think this is my favorite. This is beautiful, or one of them. So tell us, we're going to go, I've got one more question for you that could be loaded, and then we're going to go into our final 3 questions. Listing appointments. I'd love to see what a listing appointment, or if you do, is it a presentation or just a sit down? Like, what does it look like when somebody calls you in and you're meeting them about listing their house?
Yeah, it's not some formal presentation. It's more of a conversation. And you always got to get to that number. They want to hear that number that you think. And then if they don't, which I'm pretty good at putting out the numbers, and sometimes too high, I'll admit, recently I've been a little too high, but then they ask me, well, how do you think why is such and such saying this number and you're saying this higher number? And so I have to explain, that comps haven't kept up with where the reality is. So that's why if we're basing it on comps from 6 months ago, those are dated. Those are no longer appropriate.
Right. Well, I'd love to hear you say that, because I find Atlanta has been a similar market in the past where people look at comps, but interviewing 250 agents on the show, it's going on 5 years now. Interviewing agents in San Francisco, they price houses based on the market trajectory, not just what sold, because the market's always, they'll get like 20 offers on a house, and that's normal. Right now, some of their listings in San Francisco are like, some listings only get 2 or 3 offers. I'm like, isn't that a good thing? No, apparently that's a bad thing, because they're used to 10 or 20. Right. But to your point, because it's a different market, which is what it's looking at your market and how it's changing and how to navigate and advise based on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, 2 or 3 offers, because that means right at the tippy top. And, that's what my job is for my seller, is to maximize and make it as painless as possible, but to maximize the opportunity, so I feel comfortable, like trajectory, that is the right word for it. It's not based on 3 months ago or 6 months ago. That no longer works. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's a new reality we're in since the pandemic and since this real estate crunch of no inventory.
Right. And the other thing I have to say, just listening to you and for everybody, is Kevin Brown, an agent who was on the show actually a couple of years ago, he says people don't know their secret sauce. On this topic, yours is you keep a pulse, like you actually keep a pulse. Like in the market, what the market's doing, especially when it's moving this fast, you've got to know at every instant what's happening and be on it. And that's clearly what you do. And I have a feeling you take it for granted that you're so on it compared to maybe a lot of other real estate agents, which gives you that edge to get it done. And don't even be modest, because it's true.
I appreciate that.
For those of most people listening to this show, for those of those listening, the look on your face is like, well, I don't know. So,
well, I have been fortunate in that when I sit down with someone and you discuss that, and then you can back up what you're saying, and you're up against 4 or 5 other people. I've been lucky in that regard. But
what would you say your secret sauce is?
It goes back to that. I hustle pretty hard. I really respond so quick on so many things, and it's hustle, and that might not sound like a great word, but people like that. People like to know that you really care and you're giving it your all, and you're going to respond as quickly as possible.
What is it? And then we're finally going to do the final 3, but what is it that drives that in you? What gives you that? Not everybody does that, especially in, vacation resort communities. What gives it to you? What's your why? What drives you to be that way?
Fear. Absolute fear of losing. I hate to lose. Love to win.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Now the final 3. Fear. I'm afraid of losing. Final 3. Number 1, what would you say has been your biggest or greatest resource in your success?
I would say my marketing has been pretty good too. My marketing is good, and I pay a lot of attention to that, but just back to those open houses in luxury places, and kind of knowing who's the client. Everyone needs to have a niche of the price range they're good at, the kind of client they're good at. You don't overshoot, or don't undersell yourself, but you got to know, who do you really click with? I'd say that's a biggie.
So basically, marketing and showing up, and in doing that, actually know who your client is.
Right.
And deliver on that.
Right. Yeah. That's been, I kind of take that for granted at this point, but, just based on living in larger cities and being around, those kind of neighborhoods and things like that, people know that instinctively. I don't tell people that, but they know that. And then they want to deal with you because, especially if they see that you're actually showing up and doing everything you say you're going to, and you should be doing.
I would do what you say you're going to do. There's one. All right. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Books. Is there a book that you would say would have never been the same had I not read it, or you highly recommend we read, or both? And that's career or life.
I have two books. One was when I was younger, and I remember reading it twice. I liked it so much, was The Fountainhead. And, and
I know that, but I can't now. Right. Go ahead. Yeah. The Fountainhead.
But it was all about being an individual. Individualism was a huge, philosophy in there. And it's also, there was an architect. So, they thought he might have modeled himself after Frank Lloyd Wright, which I don't know if that was true or not. But I've always been fascinated by all that subject matter, being a strong, independent individual. And just the architect, it was beautifully written. All right. So that was number one. So I was younger, and
your big takeaway on that book was being a strong, independent individual.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And number two.
Okay. Is a more.
Now, finish what you were saying about The Fountainhead. Was there something else you were going to say?
Not really. Just it kind of brought into play the things that I'm fascinated by, from architecture to the individual thing, and just, he swam upstream a little bit, but he stuck to his guns. So that was it. But a more recent one is The Four Agreements.
Oh yeah, that one comes up a little bit on this show. So yeah, go ahead. The Four Agreements.
Well, it's simple. Number one being be impeccable with your word. And we all say that, but it's sometimes hard to do. Number two, don't take anything personally, which you can't help it sometimes. It is personal. Someone just stabbed you in the back, gosh, if that isn't personal, I don't know what is. But you have to let those things go so that they don't slow you down and keep you from performing at your max. And then number three was don't make assumptions, which is really important in real estate, because you never know who you're talking to. You never know the potential. So, and then number four, which is a given, always do your best. And if you surround yourself with good people and you treat them right, and you just keep utilizing those same resources over and over again, because you have a nice, you all move together in the same direction. It just works out better, because it's a long haul from the time you get the contract signed to the closing. And so that's where all those people come in to help you keep it moving forward.
Be impeccable. Number one, be impeccable with your word. Number two, remember it's not personal. Number three, don't make assumptions. And
right.
I always think, be careful. We're so unaware of our assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And number four, always do your best.
Right. Yeah. Man, that really goes to just surrounding yourself with best people you can.
Yeah. Show me the 5 people you spend most of your time with, and I'll show you who you are, or who you're going to be.
Right. Right. Yeah. I was on a really interesting call the other day with our company, Corcoran Group, not Corcoran Reverie. And this other woman was speaking, and so was I. And she's from Brooklyn, and I'm from here. But we had so much in common about surround yourself with really positive people. How do you start your day? And yeah,
how do you start your day?
I start with a walk and I listen to music. I try not to talk on the phone or text. I mean, sometimes you have to, but I listen, and it just is uplifting to me. And it starts off, and all these thoughts are in my head. I'm kind of organizing my brain, but I'm still really I'm in the moment. And it's, it's just the physicality of walking really fast and taking a good walk makes my day. Now, this lady, she was actually a preacher in Brooklyn. And she does a prayer of gratitude every morning, and which is important too. But basically, same thing. Surround yourself with really, if people are being negative, you got to stay away, because they will pull you down into their vortex of negativity.
Yes, it's rather contagious.
It can be. And our brokers, both Hillary and Jacob, I want to say something. They're some of the most positive people I've met.
They are. I mean, Hillary has just been on the show, and she was pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
All right, last question. If me and everybody listening to you today, if we're going to forget everything except one thing, what would you say to make sure that one thing is we take away?
I would say just keep moving forward. Don't let things bog you down. Just move forward. I don't mean neglect things. I just mean don't, handle the problems, but keep moving forward.
Love it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate our time.
You too, Judy. It's awesome having you on. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. If you like this episode, please share it with friends. To find more episodes, search Jere Metcalf Podcast on any platform for podcasts, or go to JereMetcalfPodcast.com. That's JereMetcalf